So, Shanae, let's go back to when this happened.
Okay.
This was 2022.
Correct.
Now, you were not there, were you?
I was not there.
Okay.
This is June 2022. I was actually living in London when this happened.
Oh, wow. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was studying law abroad, so I was not even in the States when this happened.
So then how did you zero in on it?
Chaka Zulu is a friend of mine, so as soon as it happened, literally within, I don't know, a couple hours, I got a text and said, you need to call and check on Chaka and see if he's okay. He was alert when he left. And I was like, wait, alert? And there's a 5-hour time difference. So remember, it's like 5 a.m. my time if it's midnight here. So the first thing I do, I start trying to call and see, had my mom heard anything? Had anybody heard anything? And it was on the news. Of course, there was a shooting. 3 people got shot. I knew Chaka was one of them. So that's how I found out.
Now, were you surprised when Chaka was charged?
Absolutely. I was floored. Like, this happened. So he got charged September 13th. But we didn't know about it because it all happened over the weekend, and APD didn't release that information. They waited till Monday. So we didn't know about it till like September 16th, which is basically 3 days after he was actually arrested, charged. He had already been released by the time the public found out. So when I found out, that's when I actually started to call around and said, let me get this video because I need to see what happened. So I got the video on the 16th or 17th, and that next day, I sat there in front of my computer for 8 hours and picked it apart. And that's what everybody got to see.
And then you didn't just look at the video, you shared it with the world.
Oh, absolutely. Immediately, because it didn't make any sense. And I mean, if you watch the video, you'll see my words were very choice.
What do you mean when you say it didn't make sense?
It didn't make sense they would charge this man with murder. First, you see 5 guys standing outside. 5 grown men standing outside of his place of business, which is on Sunday nights was Chaka Zulu's night, which was a private event. So why are these guys standing outside looking at him, watching him, monitoring him at his place of business? So Chaka comes back after he's getting his guest, and he's walking by himself. A guy approaches him. Whatever choice words are said, you see Chaka grab his wrists, meaning he clearly said, now that we know, he thought he was grabbing a gun from his waistband, and he said, don't pull that. The valet driver also said that he heard the old guy, because he didn't know his name, he said the older guy said, don't pull that S, don't pull that S, and you see him grab his wrist, which automatically should trigger you. He's trying to defend or prevent something from happening. At that time, 4 other guys jump him, punch him in the head, stomp him into the ground. How can you be charged with murder in a stand your ground state when you've been stomped into the ground by 5 grown men? And as soon as you get to your feet, you pull your weapon and you fire 1 shot and you start to run back to your place of business. Everything about that said this is a self-defense act. This is him fighting for his life, which he has the right to do. We all have the right to do. And he was lawfully carrying a weapon. How do you look at this video as law enforcement and you come up with, he's a murderer? Nobody else is guilty. And if you watch it, not only was he stomped, no one got charged for that. There was a girl that was punched mercilessly. Nope, cut that out. There was a girl that was punched in her face multiple times. No charges. How is that even a thing? You know what I'm saying? So these are the things that I'm looking at and I'm saying there's a problem. And so when you watch my video back, I said, that's the question I asked. How is this possible that you can charge this man for these crimes and no one else is charged with anything else? Am I looking at something different?
How do you know Atlanta police had seen that video?
Well, we got to think, they charged him with murder. How else are they going to charge him with murder? Chaka was not able to talk. He was shot in the back. He had several serious injuries, including his heart being injured, his lungs collapsed. He was in ICU. So if you're not talking to him, you're not talking to the man that was dead, you're talking to the other people that were there, how are you putting together that he's the murderer without seeing the actual evidence that was available that I know for sure APD had gotten a hold of? And now that I'm reading all of the emails that we have, I know that they had the video. But they were trying to figure out how my mom supposedly, allegedly got it and supposedly, allegedly gave it to me, which never happened.
Why do you think they tried to pin that video on your mom?
Because, I mean, I'm a civilian. They don't know me, obviously. They don't know my level of resourcefulness, obviously. And for most people, maybe that seems disconnected. Like, oh my God, Rhonda's daughter works here. Rhonda must have had something to do with it. But my mom is a civilian APD employee. My mom doesn't work in a detective unit or any type of capacity where she would have access to body worn camera footage, Mark 43 systems, anything like that. That's not what she does. She puts out feel-good stories about police and how great employees they are. Like, so it doesn't even make sense that they would look to her. But again, if you don't know me, you don't know who I know, the normal person wouldn't even think to go get a video, you know, but I'm not the normal person. Where most people are 6 degrees of separation, I'm probably a half of a degree. So there's nobody that I can't get to or ask or reach out to right now if there's something I'm trying to get to. They didn't know that. They know that now. But everybody learns the hard way.
So talk about the toll that this has put on your mom, because they sent her home, they investigated her.
It was terrible. I mean, literally, it was terrible. My mom, first off, my mom loves her job, or she loved her job. Like, she loved working at APD, and she spoke highly of them, everything. Oh my God, APD could do no wrong. I'm going to tell you this. If APD does something wrong, they're going to put out a story, and they're going to tell us that they did it wrong, and da-da-da. All of these, my mom loved her job. So to watch her basically deteriorate in that space was hard, because I felt like I had to pick a side, you know. And obviously I love my mom to death. Me and my mom are super close, like more like sisters. But then I saw this massive injustice. How do you pick? You know, how do you say, because I know what happens when you get into the system, their claws are in you. So my thing is, I never wanted him to get indicted. I didn't want Chaka to get indicted, because I know that once you get indicted, you're going to have to pay something. It doesn't matter if you could be innocent as the day is long, and they're going to want something. Let me get some community service out of you. Let me get some hours out of you. Let me get a fine out of you. You got to give them something, because they charge you. Remember, I don't know if you remember what Fonnie Willis said, we have a 95% success rate. That 95% success rate comes from, guilty or not, they get something out the deal. And then that goes on their books as a win. I didn't want him to be indicted.
So you mentioned Fonnie. Wasn't she the DA when he was charged?
She was.
And she's also the DA that dropped the charges.
She was.
What changed?
Well, one, I don't know if she actually had seen the video. Now, Fonnie is going to be, you know, far removed from the initial interactions. So my thought is that she didn't actually see the video. There was probably an assistant DA that was working on it. It hadn't been indicted yet. They have 4 years to indict. She has all kind of other charges going on in her life right now. So my thought is she hadn't even gotten around to it. And then when the video came out, now you have to get around to it. And so what APD is, they put out a statement that said, well, look it, the DA's office has seen it, and they agreed to it, and the judge agreed to it. They never did a formal statement. They just put that out to say, it's not just our fault. The judge signed off on the warrant, and the DA was aware of it, so we're all in cahoots. Blame everybody, don't just blame us. But they never came out and made a statement. So for the public, I always ask the question, when APD is silent, as if I read them their Miranda rights and they chose the right to remain silent, you have to raise a question and say, but why? But why? Because she came out with 5 different videos accusing you guys of charging him improperly, accusing you of not charging people that should have been charged, now accusing you of wrongfully terminating her mom, and you guys have said nothing. Not one statement that you could go point to where Sheer Bomb or anybody else came out and said, this is wrong information, this is a violation, nothing. Why is that? You just let me talk as much as I want. You have nothing to say because you have nothing to say. They were wrong, and they're going to continue to be wrong as long as they let this lawsuit keep going on. Because what the truth of the matter is if they know they did this, every day that this goes on, taxpayers are paying for them to hide whatever it is that they're trying to do, make a story out of something that's not true. Every day, taxpayers are having to pay the bill for these errors. And it's going to keep going on until they say, okay, let's just make this right and make it go away. But they could play this game if they want to. I'm with it.
So at this point, you feel like they need to settle with your mom?
Absolutely, they need to settle because she did nothing wrong. Not only am I saying this, the Director of Human Resources has been saying this since, I want to say March, or maybe even before, But his letters and emails to the city of Atlanta say Rhonda has done nothing wrong after a thorough investigation. And when I say thorough, let me tell you what I mean. They had an internal affairs officer go in, look at every, like I said, the Mark 43 system, the body-worn camera footage, anything that had an audit trail, they had her investigated. They had ITs looking into her emails. They had, they went to the different detectives that I interviewed and asked, had Rhonda ever reached out? So they've done detective investigation, personnel investigation, background investigation, and all of this to come out and say she did nothing wrong. Rhonda had nothing to do with this. And yet you're still, so remember, we're talking about $100,000 or more of taxpayers' money that went into the witch hunt. Let's just start with there. My mom is sitting at home collecting a check from taxpayers, dollars, because she did nothing wrong, because maybe I stroked or hit his ego the wrong way or whatever. He felt he was going to do his due diligence and get in, but he was wrong. And so now he's literally taking money out of the taxpayers' dollars. You got $100,000. There's some inner city schools that could use some books or some supplies or some after-school care programs. There's money that could be spent on, if you got that kind of money sitting around, but you're using it to look into her daughter's video and how she got it.
You're talking about Chief Shearbaum.
I'm talking about Chief Shearbaum and Peter Amon literally are sitting there. And I'm looking at emails with Peter Amon's name. Check into this. Patrick, look into that. Ask about this person. Interview this person. And nothing has anything to do with the letter that they originally sent that said, we're looking into Rhonda Frost's work performance. Really?
Do you think they never thought you would get those emails?
Oh, they didn't think they would get those emails. Those emails were not meant for us to have, and especially not in the way that we got them. But
open records.
Open records. And when you send open records, just know somebody might open them.
How many hours would you say you have spent researching this case?
Oh, well, 400, 500, 600 hours, literally, because first thing I did was when the Chaka Zulu thing first happened, I went and read every self-defense case from now until 1976, so I went back that far. I read every single case so I could see how Georgia ruled when it came to self-defense cases. That's when I was like, okay, so he definitely acted in self-defense and any court would see that. Then I started researching case law. How does this apply? Every count that I found, I was like, how does this apply? What is the rule? How is the case? So you go through all the case law for every single count. And then you go into the interviews and the things that I had to ask, because there's documents that I requested in open records that were written in, like, I want to say police code, but police code. So when somebody's at the hospital, they're on a speaker, like a walkie-talkie kind of system. And so every single thing that they say is kind of like such and such and such code, and you don't know that. So I had to meet with a detective. What does this mean? What does this mean? So I knew which officer was at Piedmont Hospital, what officer was at Grady, who was standing where, who was still at the apartment 4B. So all of that took, that's a day worth of work, 2 days worth of work, just figuring out what the codes meant and then going from there. And so again, I'm not even thinking APD is looking at my mom, because I know all the work I'm doing. Like, I know what I'm doing, and my mom is not involved at all. She didn't see the video before it was released. When I released that video, she literally called me and was like, well, that's how you feel? Because she had no idea that it was coming out. I did this all on my own. A lot of those calls that I made, I was living in London still, reaching out to detectives, reaching out to people on Instagram. Hey, you're a former detective, da-da-da-da-da. Hey, you work for APD. I'm literally doing this work, so I'm not thinking anything about them going after my mom because I know what I'm doing. So when I get these emails and I'm looking at how hard they worked to find out if it was her, it was like, give me my credit. I did that. I did all of that by myself because I didn't want Chaka to be indicted because it was wrong. I didn't feel like justice was being served. And so I did what I thought I needed to do because I could. Not everybody even knows to think like this, to ask these questions, to dig this way. So I knew that I had the analytical brain, as my mom says, to be able to research this information and get what I needed. And the outcome was what I wanted it to be. I just never thought that my mom's job would be in danger because of my actions. And further, I never thought that the chief of police would go so far to, again, send her home for 10 months, pay her to stay at home, to do nothing, and then hire another person. He literally brought in Dave Huddleston, I believe his name is, to take her place, to pay him more than what he was paying my mom to do her exact same job, all under, and then saying it's under reduction in force. Well, I don't know about you and how your math works, but if you reduce something, you take one away, you can't add another one back in there because that's not a reduction, is it? But that's what they said. And so again, then what I have to do? What is reduction in force? City Code 114-39. Oh, okay, well, no, that's not a reduction in force. Then you go to the next code and the next code and the next code. And so once you gather all this information up, I actually reached out to one of the former mayors and I said, hey, I need help. And he sent me some information, and then we ended up with A.J. Mitchell and Mark Timon as my mom's attorneys, because that's how we got there. And we were able to literally say, here, take all this information that I've already put together and tell me what you think. No, well, you got a case. And here we are.
Okay, that's good.